This computer. Okay. All right. We're now recording. And now that we're doing that, views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL TV. But you are encouraged to like and share them all on Facebook because it's time for the Sue Ellen Sanders Show in a whole new way in our archives here on YouTube, WPSL TV. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is on the weekend where you are. It's time for the Sue Ellen Sanders Show with Sue Ellen Sanders.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day. Isn't that what
A great weekend. How's that sound?
yeah. What's the Jim Carrey movie where he says in the morning to the neighbor, good morning, good afternoon, good day. In case I don't see you.
Do you have a dog in that one?
What's the name of that movie, Jessica?
I don't know.
It's the one where he's in the video, but he doesn't know that his life is a video.
Oh, the Truman Show?
Yeah, that's it. Truman Show. Yeah.
I know.
What he says at the beginning. Anyhow, welcome to the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. I'm glad to be back here live. Well, live as I'm recording. So we're Zooming and we're recording in the studio. And Jessica Parrish is here, and she is the CEO of the United Way of St. Lucie County. And we're going to talk about some of the pivoting that the United Way of St. Lucie County has done over the last, is it like 5 months, 6 months, 50 years?
I feel forever. I mean, come on.
I know. It's funny because when we first started doing kind of COVID themed radio shows, I was thinking it was going to be for like 2 or 3 weeks. And so then we had to go ahead and move off the subject of COVID and just go back to regular radio shows because it was continuing on for way too long. And along the way, I picked up actual COVID virus. And so I'm back on the air live after 3 weeks of being under the weather. And I'm here to say it's not a hoax. It's pretty miserable. But now, I feel like if I'm going out and about, I feel like I kind of have a new freedom. I'm not so freaked out about, I wear my mask and I, sanitize and do everything. But I like when I was using the keypad at Publix yesterday, I was thinking to myself, well, what's the worst that could happen? I pick up more COVID?
Just be careful. I don't want it a second time.
I know. And there's a whole thing that's possibility of getting a different strain of it. I'm like, it is what it is, right?
I was really impressed. I went to Sam's and got gas the other day, and they're now wiping down the fuel pumps and the keypads. They haven't always done that. Yeah, in between each person.
That's awesome. I was keeping wipes in the car for pumping gas was my biggest fear, which is kind of silly because that's certainly not the thing that I do most often. But I would like grasp it with whatever else was in my car that I could use, whether it was a piece of paper or a wipe or something. And so that's good to hear. And we're not calling it a new normal anymore because it's not a new normal. It's changing and evolving every day. And at worst case scenario, we're going to have a generation of kids who really know how to wash their hands.
Yes.
And understand the importance of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's very true.
yeah. Anyhow, Jessica, um, the United Way has been evolving and pivoting too, because you're used to doing a lot of things. You do a lot of you were meeting to go over your campaign, uh, the commitments for your campaign last spring when this all started, and you had to immediately take your meetings. I think your meetings were some of the first Zoom meetings that I did.
I think that's a good thing. I don't know. The first of many, right?
Yes, yeah. And as we've gotten better with computers, but can you imagine if this had all happened even 5 years ago, when we all weren't as accustomed to doing
No.
things on computer and virtual type of activities? We would have been lost.
Yeah, I think the whole nation would shut down more so than it already did, because if it wasn't for technology, nothing would have moved forward.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about how the United Way is continuing to help the community, because in times like this, in times where the community is of greatest need, there's opportunities for the everybody who has and everyone who doesn't have in the community, um, to work together to make sure that everybody's fed and clothed and housed, and that's part of what the United Way is doing.
Yeah, so let's start this conversation by saying I officially became CEO on April 1st. What a perfect time.
Yes.
I mean, there's no guidebook on how to run an organization during a pandemic, so it's really trial and error.
And poor Karen Knapp, her farewell reception
Yeah.
was one of the first things that canceled on my calendar.
I know, it was scheduled for March 31st, and I mean, it
Yeah.
was still at that point where everything wasn't closed, but people were not going out. It was in an odd time, so we just canceled it and moved on. But
Next year.
right, we
Yeah.
kind of shifted pretty rapidly because of everything that's going on. When the governor issued his stay-at-home order, all of our staff became remote. So up until that point, we didn't have remote capabilities for everyone in the office. So that was new for us also. But rapidly, like you said, citizen review panels were coming up pretty quick in the beginning of May, and that doesn't give us a lot of time to pivot and switch that mindset of all of our volunteers that had signed up to tour agencies and meet the representatives. And quickly we moved that format into Zoom, which was very successful, I think, by the way. All the volunteers thought very highly of it, still were able to engage with the agencies, like you mentioned, Sue Ellen, and still get their questions asked. So I think it was very good. However, they still missed that in-person tour of a facility and the in-person meeting with the staff at that agency, the CEO, the program manager, and things like that.
And also the tour of the clients, to be able to see clients really receiving services.
Yeah. I mean, through Zoom, it's a lot harder to do that client testimonial and really get a feel for what the agency is doing, because it's all digital right now. And, in the beginning with Zoom, you have all the distractions on, well, where's the mute button? How do I turn on the mic? Where's the video? And everything in the background. So we went through all of that during our panels. It was the nuance.
I think during my panel, we did.
How to screen share with agencies, how to upload PowerPoints. It was a rapid learning curve for us in that first week or two. But I think it went fairly well. Right now, we're truly switching all of our campaigns to be digital. Typical United Way is going into the workplace, making presentations, meeting with donors, doing large gatherings. None of that can occur this year. We have a few of our campaigns that are allowing us into the workplace, but a majority of them are not. So we've set up digital pledge forms and digital landing pages to where they can blast that out via email to their employees and just donate online strictly through that platform. We're looking at creating more video marketing tools instead. That way we can still get the client testimonial out to the potential donors or donors so they can see and still interact in that manner. We've offered to do some Zoom sessions. Instead of an in-person presentation, we can coordinate it through Zoom if they want to broadcast it on a large presentation screen. So there's a lot of pivoting that's been going on in a very short amount of time.
And actually, it's more convenient to a lot of employees and team members. And it has the perception of being a little bit more confidential too, if you're able to complete that form on your computer and push a button to do it rather than actually fill out a form and turn it into human resources. So it's convenient and confidential, and it looks really good to have the campaigns up digitally. It makes it easy to deal with.
I think you're exactly right, Sue Ellen. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of our campaigns may want to continue that digital platform and that digital pledge instead of the actual paper form from this point on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think of all the pens and pencils that we're saving.
All the printing costs for all those forms that we print every year.
All the trees in the forest that are going to be able to
Exactly.
not be cut down because of the paper and the pencils.
So in the middle of all this pivoting, we also activated a relief fund. So we had a COVID-19 economic recovery relief fund. So it's a mouthful, where in about a month to two, I think we had it live for about 2 months. We raised about $135,000 through the relief fund solely for agencies that are helping those clients that were impacted by COVID. So a lot of the funds went to agencies providing rent, mortgage, utility assistance to those that were laid off or furloughed or out of work. We also provided substantial funding for food resources in the community so that residents had access to food, things like that.
And then supplies as well. At the very beginning, I know you were on the forefront working with people when we were looking for things that are more widely available, like hand sanitizer and masks. They're more widely available now, but boy, even toilet paper. I mean,
I know. In the beginning, a consortium of local funders, so it was United Way, Children's Services Council of St. Lucie County, Community Foundation, Allegheny Franciscan, we all came together and pooled our resources to get PPE for a lot of our agencies. So we're talking about at the time when nobody else could get it, the masks, the hand sanitizer, the wipes, things like that. Even to this day, we had a conference call this afternoon, the Clorox wipes are still on back order.
Yeah, and it is true. And, because we thought that this was going to be a more temporary situation, everybody was looking for the disposable masks. And now that everybody is kind of accepted that they're in for the long haul, we're really looking more toward a different type of mask, even with the Early Learning Coalition. And a lot of our clients are looking for masks that they can wear and wash and wear again. Because whether you're teachers or parents, you can't afford a new disposable mask every day.
Exactly, yeah. And another need that emerged pretty rapidly was the need for diapers. So we had agencies that had clients coming in daily asking and looking for diapers because they couldn't find them on the shelves either. So that was one of the supplies that we pulled our funds together to purchase, bulk supplies of diapers for some agencies within the community.
You realize that these are supplies that families can't do without, that to get through the day, that's the type of supply they need.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've been working with other agencies and other organizations such as the Children's Services Council and Allegheny Foundation and the Community Foundation of Martin in St. Lucie. but you've also been working with groups like the Board of County Commissioners, and helped establish the website that's kind of the go-to for all, the Recover St. Lucie.
Yeah, so when the county received notice that they were receiving, I think about 55 million in funding from the government under the CARES Act, we were approached to help create some program for nonprofits and faith-based organizations in the community. So any nonprofit or church or faith-based organization is eligible for assistance specifically for reimbursement of expenses incurred due to COVID. So if they needed to buy, like we were saying, PPE, sanitizing, or they had to pay extra to have their offices or facilities deep cleaned or sanitized on a weekly basis, all of that is reimbursable under our grant. The only caveat is it cannot be funding loss due to COVID. So we're talking canceled fundraisers, reduction in tithes, things like that is not eligible. But we can help offset some of the costs that were incurred due to COVID. Most of what we're seeing is the need for reimbursement of all these agencies going digital. Nobody planned to go digitally this quick. So we're looking at expenses for Zoom licenses, purchase of laptops, webcams, are some of the big ones that we've had come through. Obviously, sanitizing, hand sanitizer, wipes, masks, gloves, we've had all that come through as well. One thing that surprised me with one of the requests, but it was approved, is a staff member at an agency tested positive and they had to pay another staff member overtime to cover the job duties of that said person. So this is more of a therapeutic nonprofit that needed a therapist to step in and cover that caseload while that individual was out. But that was something that I didn't even think about, is how are we covering the staff that are out due to COVID? And this grant can help cover and reimburse that agency some of those costs.
And that's it. As we move forward, we're discovering the depth of the needs, and also how important it is to you said that the grants don't replace the fundraising or events that are canceled for different nonprofits or organizations. But at some point, push comes to shove, somebody is going to have to come up with those funds that are missing from organizations' budgets.
Yep, this can help replenish reserves that maybe they used reserves to buy all this stuff. This was not a planned episode, so a lot of people tapped into their reserves to try to quickly pivot and get things done. It is a case by case depending on what the agency went through, so we don't have like an exhaustive list of what's been eligible. It's really based on what this agency had to do to get to where they're at today. The main thing we tell them is it's reimbursement of an expense that was not budgeted at the time you did your budget. So if you didn't have plans to sanitize your office as much as you do, or bring in additional help because of the influx of need that you have right now, then it would be eligible. Things like that. We've had a couple centers that needed to upgrade internet because they have more kids on site now that are using digital, and as we all know, Zoom and technology has been crashing. So they needed to increase the bandwidth to maintain that stream for the amount of people that are on the system at one time. Stuff like that is eligible, but it's really case by case. So if anyone's interested in applying, they can visit our website or they can call us and talk through it. I mean, we're more than happy to figure out what would work and what wouldn't work for each individual agency.
Well, that's the thing about St. Lucie County, as opposed to living somewhere where you might not know the services and the availability and the people that you're speaking to, that the United Way is available, and to be able to talk, as you said, somebody through it, or whatever the need is. Here on the Treasure Coast, we're really good at working interagency. I know that, I don't know if you were part of the COSA membership meeting phone call this morning, but the number of COSA, of course, stands for Council of Social Service Agencies, and the amount of agencies that just send something out for an individual. They'll say, I have this family with multiple kids who's in need of this because there was a fire, or because something changed in their life due to COVID, or due to job loss because of COVID. But then another person from another agency sends them the information to help them in another way.
Yeah, I think someone wants attention in your house.
Does want attention in my house, and it's
funny because that happened to me too when I was trying to lead a meeting and I was at home. All my dog kept doing was barking and barking and barking.
Well, we have in our neighborhood, after school is out, there's certain people who now have golf carts, and kids like to ride around on the golf carts, and they just like go around in circles and circles and circles, or
nice.
Might run or ride their bikes. And so every time somebody passes the house, whether they're in a car or Amazon delivery or on a bike or on a golf cart, my dogs have got to bark to let me know.
That's awesome.
Or so I feel very secure here at home.
Yeah, I bet.
It is.
Speaking of COSA, we haven't necessarily been able to participate because a while ago, before I came to United Way, they shift the meetings to the third Wednesday at 8 a.m. and it conflicts with our board meeting. So, Sue Ellen, if I send you our CARES flyer, would you help us get it out to COSA as well? Yeah, because for some reason it was board meeting or COSA meeting.
There's priorities. Yes, I understand. I'd be happy to share that, but it's not just that organization, of course. It's other organizations. For example, Children's Services Council have really stepped up to the plate for all of their member agencies and the people who use their services, and they've been as the first it was pre-summer, and then it was summer, and now school is back in session, and the needs are changing for families every day.
Yeah. Working really closely with Children's Services Council through this all. Coming into our COVID relief fund and the grants that we made into the community, Sean and I had an early agreement that I will look at the basic needs grants, since that's an area United Way usually funds, and that he can focus on the education and ensuring that the kids are transitioning and getting the materials that they need. That way we're somewhat covered within the community with our COVID resources, and we can spread them out farther than just each of us doing something without the other knowing. So we've worked really closely through this whole pandemic and this whole process. So it's been wonderful.
The website that's Recover St. Lucie also has more than just information on CARES Act grants. It's got a lot of other information too. I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit while I mute myself until the dog stops barking.
Yes, the Recover St. Lucie website has a placeholder for individual assistance. So where residents that are in need of assistance can apply directly to the county and receive up to $4,000 in assistance. That application is on there and it lists everything that's eligible. I think it's like rent, mortgage assistance, utility directly, but they even go as far as car insurance, car payments, things like that that are not typically provided in normal programs. There's also a link on there for small business grants. So the Economic Development Council is working in partnership with St. Lucie County to provide small business grants to those that have were those businesses that were forced to close down due to the pandemic. We know the governor has shut down bars at certain points in time. So any of those businesses that have been impacted by COVID can apply for the grant through small business, through the EDC as well.
As the executive for the United Way of St. Lucie County, it must have made you feel really good to see the people who stepped up in the private sector as well. For example, there were a number of different businesses at the beginning of the shutdown that were shut down. And so they pivoted and tried to come up with ways that they could offer supplies or services for the businesses and the families and the individuals who needed their help.
There was a lot of breweries and alcohol distilleries that quickly shifted their equipment to produce the hand sanitizer.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You could do that with that same equipment, but that was awesome.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we had distributed some of the hand sanitizer that came from the distillery in West Palm, and
I think this one.
yes, yeah, and some of it we distributed that out to the child care centers very early on because it was really all that we could find, and so we purchased it and gave it to them. And there were some parents who thought that the child care center was starting to smell like a distillery because it does have a different odor. It doesn't really smell like alcohol so much as kind of hoppy smelling. Yeah, Steel Tie is one of the distilleries. I had asked right off the top of my head, I'd asked Sailfish Brewery, who's always been so involved in the community, if that was something they could do. But the beer, the breweries that only brewed beer didn't have the facilities in place as those who brewed alcohol. So that was the difference.
It's funny. We had this Steel Tie, and one of our staff members took it, and she was saying she was worried that if she ever got pulled over, that the police officer would think she was drinking because of the hoppiness from the hand sanitizer.
You know, it was funny. One of the problems they had when they first started making the hand sanitizer was getting the individual containers to be able to put it in. And the first thing they had was those little honey bear containers. So some of the early Steel Tie sanitizer went out and, you know, like the little honey bear containers that you get your honey in.
Yeah.
So at least that would change it in case they were pulled over. It would look like honey instead of alcohol. But you know, there were you know, restaurants and organizations that, you know, like Publix, grocery stores, who purchased fruit and other food for the sake of handing it out for free. You know, obviously not through their grocery store registers, but donating it to organizations like the Treasure Coast Food Bank and other food banks. And certainly the food banks have been partnering with the cities and the counties to do drive-through food distribution and do whatever is necessary during the summer. The school district and the Boys and Girls Club and the Fort Pierce Women's Club and Graceway Village and Sarah's Kitchen all stepped up to have feeding programs for families. And a lot of the families they were serving, honestly, were not families they usually serve.
Right.
They were families that weren't used to being in a position of needing food.
It's definitely a different demographic than what those agencies are used to seeing.
So things are changing every day.
I know. I was When you said the drive-through distribution, United Way operates Tools for Schools St. Lucie. So we have a free teacher resource center where teachers normally can come and shop for school supplies. So we usually have 3 teachers every 30 minutes in the store. They can pick up their supplies. Last year, we did a huge back to school bash during preschool week,
Right.
where it was like about 200 teachers came and shopped in that 1 week. Well, obviously we couldn't do that this year because of everything that's going on. So we actually had volunteers come out for a week and pre-package all of the supplies into backpacks. And then the teachers would drive up, pick up their pre-packaged supplies and just be on their way. So we still held the bash, it just looked a little different.
It is, and yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because coming up, not this weekend that this show is running, but the following weekend on September 26th, the ELC, which typically has this big family fun fair, we had it scheduled for April. And of course, you know, it was mid-April, and that was the first thing we did was postpone it. And we postponed it till September. Hey, we're going to be great by September. And by, you know, July, we were coming to realize that September was not going to be far enough in the future for us to have a family fun fair where 1,000 families came out and went from table to table getting free books and stuff and learning about different services. That just wasn't going to work out, because even if the families showed up, the different social service agencies and the child care centers and the other local agencies, they didn't want to be out there meeting and dealing with 1,000 extra people. So we turned it into a drive-through event that we're going to be holding on Saturday morning in our parking lot. Mm-hmm. And we'll be, instead of having tables that are out there, we'll just have about 8 stations. And the health department is paired with Care Now and the Healthy St. Lucie, and they're going to have a Healthy Start station. We're going to have a literacy station that's Children's Services Council. And our STEM gems, our ladies who teach other preschool teachers about STEM activities and parents, are going to have a station. And we're going to have a take-home scavenger hunt station. But people aren't getting out of their car. They're not going to go station to station walking along. There's not going to be our usual stuff like face painting or a drum line. There's going to be cars driving through, and we're going to be at each station giving them a grab and go bag to take home. And, you know, they'll still get the books, they'll still get information on services, they'll still get a lot of freebies, they'll get some craft kits. The STEM gems are actually giving a craft kit on how to make a catapult, and they're catapulting it into the car. So that's going to be fun. But we're going to have you know, people participating, but in a very socially distant way. And it's going to be limited stations, and families are going to stay in their car, and we're going to hand them grab and go bags.
We ran into something similar, Sue Ellen, because every October we typically kick off our campaign with a day of caring. So the past 2 years we've had 400 volunteers give their time on a Saturday. And with everything going on, there's no way we could do the projects in a socially distant manner. I mean, we're talking about painting offices, landscaping, you know, things like that. So we brainstormed and changed it to a United Way Spirit Week. So for the week of October 5th through 9th, each day has a certain theme, but we're going to be celebrating Monday is a Meet Alice Day. We have a T-shirt Tuesday, Women United Wednesday, Thank You Thursday, and then a Fearless Friday. So every day we'll be doing something on social media, marketing, things like that, posting little vignettes, little videos onto social media, but it gives us a week-long celebration in lieu of the Day of Caring this year.
And, it is sad because having participated for a number of years in the Day of Caring, I really enjoyed being part of a team that was going out to an agency who, whether they needed their walls painted or we hung up clothes at Mustard Seed one year. And there's physical needs that these different agencies and organizations have, but we're just not going to be able to do it as United Way volunteers this year. And so I'm really glad that it's kind of turned into a week of cheerleading, basically. So people will still understand what the United Way is and what the United Way does. And everybody will be able to participate. I think we put our order in for t-shirts.
Good.
So we're planning to be part of the t-shirt day. But, again, you mentioned the social media, and a lot of the organizations, we're depending on things like e-newsletters and social media, and not just Facebook, because honestly, there are a lot of there's a whole generation of people who don't have Facebook accounts, sadly.
True. It's very true.
Some of us have finally learned how to do everything on Facebook,
And now it's phased out. No.
Yeah, I know. But Twitter and Instagram and even LinkedIn, there's a social network that usually fits your needs. And by the way, I just learned how today to do voiceover on a PowerPoint.
Oh,
so that was pretty exciting, because that's one of the other pluses in our post-COVID world, is that a lot of us have learned that you can learn just about anything sitting at your dining room table on your computer, and looking up how to.
But that's a whole other pivot that you just brought up, that a lot of our agencies and a lot of the communities had to do, was shift their marketing to be more socially based, more social media, more internet, more digital than what they've ever done before. The paper flyers are not as distributable anymore. People are hesitant on touching paper.
Yes.
Of course, the mailings are even questionable right now, because not everybody's checking the mail or willing to touch the mail because they don't know where it's at. So it's a lot more digital communications, a lot more digital marketing now. And some agencies have a hard time with that pivot because they're used to the in-person paper base, that it's been a shift.
They are used to the in-person paper-based, and some of it is just because it's what they've always done, but some of it also is because that person-to-person contact, especially with social service agencies, really makes a difference with clients, that there's really no substitute for person-to-person contact. So I think that the agencies really have to work twice as hard or 5 times as hard to create that connection, to make a virtual meeting or a virtual presentation interesting.
It's definitely tough. We run one major community campaign in partnership with the United Way of Martin County in Harbor Ridge, over off the end of Becker. And they have a very well-oiled machine where that community is divided up into communities. Each community has a captain, and typically that captain goes door to door for the donations. Well, it's a retirement community, so not a lot of them are open to going door to door because they don't know where that person's been. I get it. They're hesitant about that interaction. So we've had to set up a landing page for online giving. We're creating a specific video right for that organization to be sent out solely to their residents, geared specific to Harbor Ridge. It's going to be a lot of email communication. And, typically we do an in-person kickoff where we pass out flyers and meet the captains. And this year it's going to be a drive-through kickoff, so it's all shifting. Everything's changing.
And it's not just agencies and organizations and businesses that have to make the shift. The shift has to happen on the other side too, with the people who are receiving the services. They have to understand that it's going to look different.
Yeah. And specifically with this community, typically during their campaign, we do 4 days of caring around each of our pillar areas. And they used to go to Mariposa and read to the students. They would go into the Alzheimer's Center and have a holiday party. Those things we won't be able to do this year. So we're shifting to be more of like a book drive for Mariposa, or they'll collect tents for the clients at Graceway, things like that. It's going to be more collection driven than it will be interaction.
And, the word pivot, it comes into play, and it continues to come into play, because I think the people who are going to be the most successful are those that are able to and willing to pivot. But you also you mentioned the Alice population, and that's been a United Way driven campaign identifying Alice families. And it felt like we were really finding a way to address that Alice population, which of course is asset limited, working.
Oh, come on, Sue Ellen.
Asset limited, income constrained.
Employed.
There's the working part. Yes. So, but now that population is growing, because they were the people who were nearing the fiscal cliff. They were the people who were just one paycheck away, or one emergency away, one car repair away from being in crisis. And 6 months of COVID has created a situation where hundreds of thousands of people who weren't near the fiscal cliff before, who were not Alice families, are now Alice families.
Well, and it's funny because we had talked about this being a different demographic accessing services than what has typically been served before. And it's really the Alice populations that have been disproportionately affected due to COVID, because they are those that are working and jobs are closing. They're the ones that are getting furloughed. They're the ones that are being laid off. It's a different environment. So in 2018, when the report came out, we were about 35% were considered Alice households, and we had poverty at about 16%. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how COVID affected St. Lucie County and the income in those clients when the report comes out. I'll be interested to see how much of a jump we have in that Alice and that poverty population, because a lot of those Alice households probably shifted down into the poverty percentage.
And that's what the fear is. And then, one of the other things that I know that the United Way has been pushing, as well as all of the different social service agencies in the cities and the counties and the state. And that is the census, because, what we're talking about here, being able to help people and being able to have those social service dollars available. 2020 is the year where we're counting the people that are in each area, that are in each county, in each state. And if we don't get a correct count, if we have 68%, or 10 years ago it was 75%, that's 25% of the people who weren't counted, that we don't get federal dollars for, that we don't build roads for, that we don't have programs for. So I know that they moved the deadline up for getting the census information in to the end of September, and that's coming up right around the corner.
So I can tell you, as of Friday, St. Lucie County had a 64.7% response rate.
So it's even lower than it was 10 years ago.
That was as of Friday. Yeah.
And now the census workers are at the point where they're going door to door for people who have not replied. But if you got a postcard in the mail, or if you got an email from the Census Bureau, and you know you haven't turned in that information, it takes 5 minutes to turn it in. Or if someone does come to your door and they have the census ID and they'll be wearing a mask and they have a list of 10 questions they ask you, and you do not have to be a citizen, and it does not matter what political party you are, and it doesn't matter your native language, and it doesn't matter anything other than you are a body and you are 1 day old. So even the babies, even the babies that were born, you need to count them all.
Exactly. And I think because of the infant, Robin Cryer, who's our local census rep, mentioned that we left close to $1 billion over the 10-year span on the table because we didn't have a solid count the way we did this. So it's important. The deadline's this year because of everything that's going on.
So yeah, September 30th, and I know that the Roundtable of St. Lucie County and the City of Port St. Lucie and the City of Fort Pierce and St. Lucie County are all running some type of contest. So if you fill out your census and send them the confirmation number, you don't have to share the information that you put on your census, but also for anyone who is listening to this, if you are a landlord and you have tenants in your property, remind them that they need to fill out that information and that you're not getting a copy of that information.
No, and it can easily be done online at 2020census.gov. You don't even have to fill out the paper. You can just do it on secure platform, submit it there.
Is that my dog? Yes, it is. No dogs counted. She's saying all dogs count.
There you go.
But one of the things that you said is you could just go to 2020census.gov. But also, I know I'm still hearing from people who say that they want to make sure that their information is confidential. And I know Robin did such a great job early on of presenting out in the community, back when we could present out in the community, and talking about that it's actually 72 years before that information can be released. It remains confidential for 72 years or 75 years, something like that. A lifetime, basically.
Yeah, a long, long time.
Yeah, so if you have multiple families living in one home, count everybody, turn in all that information. If your kids were going to college, but they moved back home again, and they're doing their courses online from your house, count them.
Yeah.
If you know that they're in a dorm and you're not counting them, make sure that they're turning in that information somewhere. That it's so important. And we do, that's money that's left on the table that somebody else is getting, somebody else who's got their people counted. So we only have a few more minutes left, and I know the United Way campaign is the kickoff is coming up, and we talked about how that's going to look a little different. If you work for someone that doesn't have a United Way campaign, can you still help?
Absolutely. You can reach out to our office, and we'll be glad to help you set one up.
So you can set something up for your company. It can be completely online, or it can be something that you just donate on your own. And, as you said, usually you go out to different organizations and you talk about people who use the United Way services. Let's talk for just a minute about the pillars that the United Way represents, because each time you have a strategic planning, that changes just a little bit.
Yeah, so we focus really on 4 main areas. So we have basic needs, education, financial stability, and health. So the 26 agencies and 28 programs we fund fall those 4 areas each year. And each year we solicit and review applications. But if anyone is interested in getting more information, they could call myself at the office, 464-5300. Or visit our website at unitedwayslc.org.
I unmute the dog again. Maisie is saying, if you could translate.
Donate to United Way.
Donate to United Way. Because all of the monies that's raised with the United Way, it's evaluated by people in the community. I don't know what to do to stop her from barking.
Simply wants to.
My husband's in the other room with the door closed in the office. He's just ignoring everything.
Dog says support the United Way of St. Lucie County, though.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Marty finally came out of the office. He's like, "Oh, is the dog barking? Is it bothering Sue Ellen's radio show that's live?" Yeah. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Jessica is not so new anymore, but she's the CEO for the United Way of St. Lucie County, and Pivot is her middle name. Jessica Parrish, thank you for joining us for the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. We'll see you back here next week with more.